Hello, my name is Dr. Michael D'Andrea. I am a social justice advocate, an educator, faculty member, and I am delivering this personal invitation to persons who are concerned about and looking for ways to get involved in whatever time they have to offer to address the various forms of violence in our society. The impetus of this project has been stimulated by the increasing numbers of violence, injuries, and even death on law enforcement persons and persons of color, especially young, Black, and Latino unarmed men and women across the United States. The title of this project is The Call of Conscience, promoting justice, peace, and healthy human development by reducing violence in our society. The Call of Conscience is drawn from the work of civil rights workers in the 1960s who organized various calls for conscience in implementing protest strategies as well as educational interventions and organizing techniques to address the injustices that went hand in hand with the various forms of violence that characterized that era in the history of the United States. Many of those same factors contribute to a broad range of violences in our own society in the 21st century. Therefore, while we will be addressing and inviting speakers from various agencies and organizations from across the United States to look at the problem of within group violence as well as between group violence, especially focusing in on the increasing trend of police shootings of persons of color, again, primarily African American young unarmed males and Latino males and females, and examine what sort of strategies communities across the United States are using to prevent violence from occurring in these sort of gun shooting incidents. But we will also look at the intimate interconnections of other types of violence that contribute to the shootings that are well publicized by the media almost on a weekly basis. These other factors relate to the violence we see occurring against gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender persons in our society. We will also spend time over the next year organizing speakers and participants, representatives from various communities and organizations that look at the various forms of domestic violence, including physical abuse of elderly persons and families, and exactly what is being done in communities across this country to address that violence. We'll look at the issue of economic violence and the psychological and spiritual strangulation that is closely knit with people living in poverty. We'll look at the increasing militarization of the United States, a country that invests 43% of all arms on the planet, including all other nations, as the superpower of arming our nation and other nations, leading to sporadic and systemic forms of military interventions. We'll look at environmental violence and how the destruction of environmental conditions, such as what occurred in Flint, Michigan, are really acts of violence that lead to the illness and death of persons in the case of Flint and other cities around the United States. Having children and adults drinking and cooking with poisoned water that has an adverse effect which violently disrupts physical functioning and tears down the resilience and strength of persons at the psychological and spiritual levels. We'll be looking at a broad range of factors that are intimately connected to the racial violence we see occurring in our country and the increasing attacks on police officers around our nation. The call of conscience, promoting justice, peace, healthy human development, and the reduction of violence in no way supports the sort of gun violence that leads to the wounding and killing of human beings in our society and around the world. We passionately and enthusiastically and unequivocally denounce the use of violence in shootings and other forms of injuries caused by weapons. But we also denounce the other forms of violence that I briefly outlined a minute ago. We will be launching a series of webinars and electronic town hall meetings on September 28th, 2016, that will involve outlining and getting input from participants. These webinars and electronic town hall meetings are free. We will be recording these meetings, and we encourage you to consider not only having yourself attend these webinars, but to consider the ways in which you can invite your students in your classrooms, your colleagues in community agencies across the United States, your brothers and sisters in various religious communities around our nation. In general, and importantly, we invite anyone to participate in these free webinars and electric town hall meetings with the purpose of increasing our knowledge of what sort of interventions are currently being used by tens of thousands of professionals, teachers, and concerned citizens to deal with the various forms of violence that are disrupting the soul of our nation. One of the things that we're aware of is that while many people are genuinely concerned and interested in helping to deal with these problems, they lack the knowledge of programs and interventions that are going on in their own local communities, lack the knowledge of statewide interventions, and do not have an awareness of the sort of policy development at the national level and the funding for national projects that are designed to promote peace and healthy human development by reducing violence. Thus, a goal of the Call of Conscience is to increase the participants' knowledge of what's going on in their own communities, and also to have the participants share their knowledge about things they are doing and their knowledge of interventions that are occurring in their own communities or in their own states. The purpose of this goal is to not only inspire individuals through the educational process of these webinars and electronic town hall meetings, but to go beyond inspiration and education to achieve a new level of organization and motivation to participate in efforts to reduce violence and promote peace, justice, and healthy human development. Now, it's important to understand that we're not advocating for people to even think that we are asking for people to do more on 10 things that are already a part of your busy personal and professional daily lives. No, we're not asking for 100% more on 10 things, but we are asking you to consider the possibility of doing 5% more on one thing. That could be involved with local sport teams at the elementary, middle school, and high school levels. It could involve inviting students in universities to participate in these webinars. It could involve working with your religious communities to help bring together people to discuss how the religious communities in your local community can address the problems of violence and promote justice, peace, and healthy human development. We will be creative advocates. We will recognize and be revitalized by the discussions that we have on the Call of Conscience, on our numerous webinars and electronic call meetings, and we will be respectful and extremely grateful for the ways in which this intervention will facilitate new connections between yourself and persons in your local community, your state, and even the nation at large, to achieve the goal of promoting justice, peace, and healthy human development by reducing violence. Please keep your calendar open for our first webinar and electronic town hall meeting that will occur on Wednesday, September 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have additional questions, you can contact me personally by phone at 808-391-0508. That's Dr. Michael D'Andrea at 808-391-0508. You also can get much additional information on an organization that is the primary supporter for this initiative, and that is the Social Justice Creations website. You can access the Social Justice Creations website by going to creatingjustice.net. That's all lowercase, no spaces, creatingjustice.net. Much of what we're doing is based upon spiritual values that cross different religions. One of the particular knowledge bases that we're drawing from comes from the Buddhist tradition. With that in mind, the Nichiren Buddhist community operates and is distinguished by other religious organizations by having its members be committed to chant at least twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. This chanting can be used to help enlighten ourselves, make ourselves more compassionate, and to draw energy to promote peace in our local communities, our states, our nation, and the global society with which we are a part. With that in mind, I'd like to end this invitation by acknowledging a chant that hopefully will give you additional energy to develop compassion and motivation to join us in the Call of Conscience. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this invitation, and we look forward to seeing you at the free webinar on Wednesday, September 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you again.